Good evening. It is 7 o'clock on this Sunday, October 16th. And welcome to Beware of Spoilers. I am Adam. I am out in East Hampton. If you listened to yesterday's episode of, Beware of Spoilers, where I talked about Halloween Kills, you know that I was out attempting the Hamptons Film Festival. Yesterday I was seeing a short film series for short films made on Long Island. I am going to bite my tongue about that, though, because I don't want to potentially harm or make a claim or make a statement that could reflect poorly on a place that I could be potentially entering a short in a film festival within the next year or two. And I'm driving, and I'm like, what the fuck is with these places in the middle of fucking nowhere and not putting a street light up anywhere? Like, what the fuck? You can't see and it's a 2-lane road, too. It's bizarre, is what it is. It's like, I don't understand. So anyway, as the title would suggest, there were a few movies in the spotlight at Hamptons International Film Festival this year. What was it? There's that movie that was a remake of that movie that Kurosawa made, that Bill Nighy is getting a lot of attention for. I forgot what it's called, though. Living, maybe. There was the new Sam Mendes movie about movies, one of 3 this year. The Sound of Light, or The Color of Light, or Metal and Light, or something in lights in the title. And there was tonight, as I was leaving, people were lining up to see Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery. That was the big closer. I elected for She Said, and let me explain why. It is a 50-mile drive to and from East Hampton. And as I'm currently finding out from my show, because you don't notice it during the day, but at night, it's very apparent that there are no street lights. And I would like to be able to go to sleep before going to work tomorrow morning. Therefore, She Said is the winner. And here we are. And I want to... I felt like She Said was one that was going to be an Oscar contender. I've been hearing a lot about it. I've been seeing the trailer, and the trailer really grabbed my attention. Because I think I've mentioned it a few times before about how brilliant that trailer is. Because I saw it. They're showing it now before just about every movie, and it is, you're sitting there and it's these 2 women investigating workplace harassment and all of that, and you're like, oh, what is this? And then it's, about halfway through the trailer, they go to someone's house, and it's like, hi, we understand you used to work for Harvey Weinstein, and then it all kind of unravels, like, oh, now I know who they're talking about, and I know what this is about. And it is such a great, exercise in marketing to do it that way, and, I'm just, every time, when I saw the trailer the first time, I was like, this is a great way to do this. And now that I've seen the movie, there was a bit, I don't remember how back, I just listened to the podcast marathon through, so I heard it 2 weeks ago, but it could have been way older than that, but it's Play, Watch, Listen, Stay on a podcast. And I think it was Troy Baker who said, when we talk about mass shooters or serial killers, we want to make it very clear that this is one person and not an epidemic across the whole country. We go out of our way to be like, this is one person. We learn their first name, we learn their last name, we learn their middle name in a lot of cases. I think that, because we don't want people to think that this can be just anyone. This is this one very, very, very specific case. And I really think you feel like, oh, that's interesting. And it's like, when you think about it, it's like, we know the name of the Columbine shooters, we know the name of the Parkland shooter, the Uvalde shooter. Like, we go out of our way, like the media goes out of their way to name, this is the person we have exercised this from what's it called? We've exercised this person from general society, and it's like this person does not reflect who we are as a people. And to an extent, she said it's kind of that. Early on in the movie, they point out, like, you know, this is pervasive. This is not just a Hollywood thing. And I'm going to keep... I mean, look, it's very hard to spoil this movie, considering it's based on, you know, what we've lived over the last 5 years at this point. Because that was one of the things they pointed out at the beginning of the movie. It's like, you know, when this story broke initially, back in 2017, it was during the festival. And I think the 5th anniversary passed a few days ago. And it's like, look, we can't sit here and, you know, there was a topic of conversation at the festival because the story was breaking while the festival was going on. And that is, it's one of those things where it's like, it's we're all familiar with the story at this point of Harvey Weinstein's fall. And it is an interesting, you know, look at how they investigated it, how they got the story to break, and how they got everything kind of lining up. It's a great exercise in kind of pulling the threads on a story and, like, pulling very, like, you know, pulling here, pulling a little there, pulling a little there. And then eventually, if you pull in enough places, if you don't, you know, tug too hard in any one place, if you pull in enough places on the outskirts, the entire thing will eventually, you know, fall apart. In this case, you know, Harvey Weinstein's misdeeds, criminal misdeeds for over decades, all came to light. And it is a very well done, very fascinating story. It does take a few flourishes. I mean, I could do with a few less establishing shots. At a 2-hour, I mean, really, like, it's now 7:20. The movie started at 4:45, so 6:45 would be 2 hours. So let's say 2 hours and 15 minutes. It took me time to walk to my car, and we're now 7 minutes into recording this. I don't think that... I think you could have done with a few less establishing shots. I don't think the establishing shots, as they are presented, really add a ton to the movie. And I think that that's, you know, by and large, something that is a debatable topic. What else was there? I think that there is definitely you know, I think that and that's not to say the movie's bad. It's just I would have, if we're going to sit here with a movie with this long of a runtime, I would have trimmed that a little bit. What else was there? The performances are all great. I think that there could have been a few alternate takes of some line reads from Zoe Kazan specifically. And that's not to say she's specifically the problem. I'm saying more as a whole. You could like if you watch it and then you rewatch it, maybe one or two more line reads. Carey Mulligan is, I would be shocked if she doesn't get a Best Supporting Actress nomination out of this. She's fantastic. And I feel like the story, and what I was saying about, you know, the exercising the person this is very, like, the way it leads off with, you know, this is pervasive, and it's like, well, look, we talked about the culture in Starbucks, we talked about the culture here, we talked about the culture here, and the movie even starts with, back in the beginning, it opens with them breaking the story about Trump, and about how Trump was doing similar things to women that Weinstein was doing. I mean, he didn't, in the allegations that they outline in the movie, he doesn't, you know, full-on rape anyone the way they articulate that Weinstein did, and Weinstein has since been convicted of, but he is, you know, groping women and doing all kinds of things like that, and taking advantage of the power dynamic, and then, you know, doing something with Bill O'Reilly. To a lesser extent, Bill O'Reilly is still there, and they do talk about the Bill O'Reilly takedown. But as they go through the movie, it very much becomes less about finding out where this goes beyond Weinstein, because, and that's the thing is too, it's like they address it a few times, but as the movie goes on, it gets addressed less and less. This idea that Weinstein was one person who was involved, and we can sit here and be like, look, Weinstein's out, we got rid of Weinstein, but looking at, you know, who else was doing what, it doesn't really address, excuse me, wow, that was awkward, it doesn't really address the wider issues, the more systemic, you know, this issue goes beyond just, you know, just Harvey Weinstein, because it wasn't just him. This problem didn't begin and end with Harvey Weinstein. It's they're like, you know, looking back, and this is going with historical stuff because it's on the record at this point, but like looking back at like Judy Garland's treatment, where they had her on all kinds of drugs so she could work 23-hour days shooting movies, and it drove her to an early grave. She would have been 100 this year, but, you know, it's that kind of thing where it's like, look, that is, you know, that is the same kind of culture that you know, leads to Harvey Weinstein. And it does a good job of trying to make the people who help look like better people, even if it is like, you know, you didn't say anything for decades and only when the press were bearing down. And it's a really interesting moment toward the end of the movie, where she's talking to someone who works for the Weinstein Company. And you can tell there's a moment where he kind of pivots and goes from, you know, defending Weinstein specifically to defending the company. And it's a small moment, but it makes all the difference, because it is this time where we're sitting here and we're looking at, you know, if we're looking to assign, it lends itself to that, where it's like, look, we are willing to get rid of one to maintain the power we have. And that is very much what that sequence is, where it's like, it's that moment of hedging their bets, where it's like, okay, so Harvey is out. We need to start posturing ourselves to maintain our power, even if we jettison Harvey. And no, I would like to, you know, I would have liked to see I want to see a more critical eye towards not the investigation, because the investigation is all great work, and the what's it called, the directors and the two reporters who carried out the investigation all did a fantastic job of carrying out the story and breaking the story. My only thing, if there was something that one could address with this movie, my one thing would be, I would have liked a more critical eye towards the people who were higher ups in the Weinstein Company, who did come forward as things started crashing down. And I would have liked for the end of the movie, when they do the talking, like, you know, anytime you see a movie about something that happened in real life, they do the where are they now kind of thing. And in this case, they do, like, you know, and then Harvey Weinstein was brought down, and, you know, 86 other women came forward, and this, that, the other, it's all things like that, like, oh, and this is still reverberating to this day. I would have preferred to have seen examples of where it's reverberating. I would have preferred to see, you know, like, oh, they're like, the work still isn't done, more than this, you know, resting on our laurels and acting like we have, you know, and that's not to take away that, and not to say that nothing was accomplished. Things are definitely accomplished. I would have preferred to have had them be like, and we accomplished this is, you know, this is great, the work goes on. And then what went on from here? And then it's like, because that's the thing too, is that the Me Too movement was not this isolated thing where it's like, and we brought down this one, like Harvey Weinstein is gone, and then that was it, and now all of Hollywood was fixed. But they don't go into who from other studios also went down, because it wasn't just Harvey Weinstein. It was like Scott Rudin got taken down, Dan Schneider, and there are other Hollywood producers who had similar falls from grace, I hate saying fall from grace because it makes it sound like they were doing like nothing wrong, and then all of a sudden someone came and took them down. When it's like they were doing really evil and atrocious shit. But I digress on that front. It is a fantastic movie. I think it is getting a wide release next month, around Thanksgiving. I think it's one of those movies where it's going to start around Thanksgiving and then slowly roll out to larger theaters, to other theaters. But when it does come out, I highly recommend you check out. She said I may, the week that it comes out, I'm probably going to include in the description for whatever episode comes out that week, I'm going to include a link to this, because this is so far in advance. But definitely would recommend that anyone who is interested in the story remotely, because there were aspects of the story that, I didn't know, because I knew the sensationalized parts, which, let's be honest, I mean, when we look back on the story, it's like all anyone ever talks about is like, Ashley Judd and all of these other, big names who did it. And they do kind of address it in the movie. It's like, well, they're actresses. They already have their platform. And that is kind of what happened, because then when we talk about all of that, it's like the assistants who got mistreated and assaulted and raped don't get the headlines in the way that the actresses did. And it is kind of an interesting, thing to look at and have this movie really shine a light on. So check it out. If you have not, it is definitely worth your time to watch. But we will wrap up there for tonight. Andor is continuing on. I will do a sum up of the most recent episode of Pennyworth. I have not forgotten about that. Well, let me rephrase that. I did forget about that, but I remembered it this morning. I was like, oh yeah, Pennyworth. And again, that is not fault. That is fully my fault, because I did request to see it early, and they did send me the entire thing. So yes, I did forget about Pennyworth. But I will eventually get around to doing Pennyworth, probably tomorrow morning. But until then, have a great rest of your week.